Hey guys, tonight we're plunging headfirst into one of the worst moments in European history. No, not a Renaissance fair gone wrong, but the actual medieval world during the height of the Black Death. Picture this. You're trudging through a narrow cobbled street, the sky dimmed by smoke from herbal fires, and a rat just darted over your foot. Charming. Children cry behind shuttered windows. Somewhere nearby a bell tolls ... again. You haven't seen your neighbor in days, and now there's a strange mark on your arm. You probably won't survive this dot, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love seeing where and when you're tuning in from now. Dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes to dawn breaking across a medieval city, perhaps London, or Paris, or maybe some no-name village where cows outnumber people. Doesn't matter. What matters is that it reeks. There's no plumbing, no garbage collection, and no real understanding of what hygiene is. You sidestep a trickle of something suspicious running down the street and try not to look at the dead cat in the corner. It's probably been there a while. You're hungry, tired, and still wearing the same wool tunic from yesterday and the day before. Laundry isn't exactly on your mind when your primary goal is not dying. The streets aren't paved with gold, they're paved with mud, waste, and layers of superstition. People toss chamber pots out windows with a casual gardy-loo, and rats scurry freely, fat and bold from feasting on whatever filth they like. You know how they say follow your nose? Not here. Here, your nose is your enemy. Rats, as you'll come to resent, aren't just gross, they're lethal. But nobody really knows that yet. Some folks think bad smells themselves cause disease, the so-called miasma theory. So your neighbors. Solution? Burning rosemary and sage in his fireplace until the whole block smells like scorched soup. There's talk of illness spreading from somewhere in the east. It's the wrath of God, whispers the baker's wife. A punishment for our sins, says the monk, coughing into his sleeve. You pretend not to notice that he looks pale and a little sweaty. That divine punishment line is getting popular. Meanwhile, some are pointing fingers at travelers, lepers, even foreigners. You begin to realize that paranoia spreads faster than the plague itself. You shuffle into the town square, and it's already different. Usually buzzing with gossip and the clink of coins, today it's hushed. A merchant tries to sell moldy apples. Another hawks potions made of ground pearls. And unicorn horn. Don't ask how he got unicorn horn. Just accept that someone out there genuinely believes that will keep them safe. Historians still argue whether the Black Death was truly 3 separate diseases: bubonic, pneumonic, and septicemic, or just one horrifically adaptive plague. But for you, it doesn't matter what they call it. You just know people are getting sick, fast. You hear someone retching in the alley, a boy crying, then shouts. A woman with a red scarf is dragged from her home by her hair, accused of being a witch. Her only crime? Her husband died last night and she didn't. Not everything is horror, though. Someone plays a lute poorly in the corner, trying to keep spirits up. You spot a girl with violets tucked in her bonnet, singing something about ring of roses. It'll be years before people realize that's not just a nursery rhyme, it's a dirge. Let's take a step back. Remember, this isn't modern-day disaster. There's no government-issued leaflet, no emergency broadcast system, no hazmat teams, or flu shots. This is a world where nobody really knows how disease spreads. People genuinely think Saturn aligning with Jupiter is part of the problem. Astrologers scribble furiously, priests weep openly, and peasants offer chickens to angry gods in hope of mercy. The local lord? He's locked himself in his manor and is burning incense non-stop while telling everyone to pray harder. You start to notice the signs. More carts moving through town empty in the morning, groaning with bodies by dusk. People who once waved to you now stare ahead, hollow-eyed. The shoemaker closed his stall. The blacksmith hasn't opened his forge in 3 days. His wife went pale overnight. No one dares knock that a stray dog barks once, then disappears behind a wall. You never see it again. By nightfall, a weird calm settles over everything. It's not peace, it's tension. The kind you feel before a thunderstorm breaks. You lie in your bed, straw poking your back, listening to someone weep softly through the wall. Your candle sputters. In the darkness, your mind races, what if? You get it? What if you already have? You scratch your leg, then stop abruptly. Was that a flea? You light the candle again, panicked. Just lint, or so you hope. Sleep doesn't come easily tonight, and you can't shake the scent of herbs and ash in the air. You wish you had something stronger than onion water to drink. You pull your cloak tighter and wonder how long this will last. Spoiler: a while, but for now, you close your eyes and hope the next sunrise brings something better. Maybe clearer skies. Maybe fewer coughs. Maybe a miracle. Don't hold your breath. You wake to the sound of coughing, not the polite, throat-clearing kind. This is the deep, wet kind that rattles through bones and hangs in the air like fog. It's coming from the house next door, or what's left of it. The door's ajar. Someone's been sick there for days. You haven't seen the old woman who lives there since market day. You stir in your bed, staring up at the wooden beams above. Dust filters through a hole in the thatch. Your body feels off. A bit too warm. Throat a bit scratchy. You tell yourself it's just from the smoky air and bad sleep. You're wrong. By the time you're out in the street again, there's a sense of dread crawling through town like ivy on stone. Word is spreading faster than anyone expected. This isn't just a passing fever. This is something else. It takes people overnight, literally. You see a boy chasing a ball today, and tomorrow he's laid out on a wooden board with a sheet barely covering his limbs. You pass by the baker's shop, closed. A charcoal scrawl across the door reads, "Plague here, God help us." You don't knock. You don't even pause. Your own throat tightens again. Ticklish, dry, the kind of sensation that would barely register a week ago. But now, you notice everything. That ache behind your eyes, that strange chill in your bones, that bruise on your armpit that you swear wasn't there yesterday. It's darker now, spreading. Still, you try to keep going. You need water and bread, even if the only thing left is burned crust. You find a small crowd outside a closed mill, people whispering, eyes darting. One man is muttering about bad air. Another swears he saw a two-headed calf born last week. Sure sign of the apocalypse. You remember hearing that people in Messina, where the plague supposedly landed first, just dropped dead in the streets. Ships brought it, someone says. From the east, from the devil, but no one knows for sure. Historians still argue whether it was fleas on rats or the sheer human misery packed into ports that gave the disease its wings. You cough into your sleeve. No one looks at you, but no one stands near you either. Later, a traveling monk tries to offer comfort. He tells a small group gathered by the fountain that suffering is the road to salvation, that God tests the faithful. You want to believe him. You really do. But then he starts coughing, too, and you quietly step away before his words become wheezing. That tickle in your throat hasn't gone away. Your neighbor's daughter 7, maybe 8 was fine 2 days ago. This morning her face is blotchy and pale, her lips cracked. Her mother carries her outside wrapped in blankets, whispering prayers with every step. The girl can barely hold her head up. You force yourself to look away. You try not to imagine your own sister like that. You head back to your home and lock the door. You light a candle and sit in silence. Every sound outside is too loud. Every footstep feels like it's coming for you. You're not even sure why. There's no order to it all, no pattern. One house falls while the one next to it is untouched. A drunk sleeps in the gutter and lives while a priest with clean hands drops. In the middle of a sermon, you remember how it started in you, not with a bang, but with that tiny cough, that ache. Then came the swelling, under the arm, near the groin, hot to the touch, painful, blackened. They call it the bubo, and once it shows up, you're on a countdown. Some last a week, some last a day. You light another candle, partly for warmth, partly because the dark feels like it's closing in. You still remember what the merchant said at the gate. It skips the healthy, finds the weak. But you've seen strong men fall like wheat in harvest. There's no logic, only luck. And you're not sure if yours has run out yet. Night again. You wrap yourself in blankets that smell like soot and old wool. You try not to think about the ache in your joints, or that your tongue feels a little swollen. Maybe it's just nerves. Maybe you're imagining it. You tell yourself that, but your body feels foreign, like something's brewing just beneath the surface. Something wrong. You dream of rats, hundreds of them, climbing over walls, into cribs, across altars. One looks straight at you with eyes that almost seem smug. You wake with a start. The candle's burned low. The room's cold. Your breath fogs faintly in the air, but the ache is still there. Heavier now. Your throat's dry as parchment. You reach for your water jug and sip, hoping that tomorrow it's just better, that this is nothing, that you're one of the lucky ones. And then you cough. Just once, but deep. And suddenly, you're not so sure. The next morning you wake to a smell, not the usual village funk of dung, sweat, and damp wool, but something sharper, medicinal maybe, faintly sour. It takes a moment to realize it's coming from you. Your sweat reeks oddly metallic. Your mouth tastes like copper. Your head is foggy. There's that same throbbing under your arms. You sit up slowly, wincing. Your body feels bruised in places it shouldn't. You touch the spot under your left armpit and flinch. It's warm, swollen, lumpy. You've seen buboes before. On others, you didn't think you'd get one yourself. You light a candle and hold it close to inspect the swelling. It's the size of a plum, deep red and angry. You poke it, then regret everything. Pain zings up your ribs like you've been stabbed with a hot needle. Still, you get dressed. Why? You're not sure. Some feeble hope that someone, anyone, can help. You make your way to the local healer. She's not a trained physician, no one around here is, but she's got jars and herbs and a book with drawings of internal organs that may or may not be a cookbook. She greets you at the door wearing a scarf soaked in vinegar. You have the look, she says softly, but come in anyway. She pokes your swelling with a stick, not joking, sniffs your breath, then nods sagely. Bad humors, she announces. Liver's off, you're too hot. That's the prevailing theory in 1348. Your body's balance of fluids, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile is out of whack. And what's the solution? Leeches. Obviously, you lie on a cold bench while she presses a clay pot to your arm and encourages the leeches inside to latch on. The feeling is unspeakably awful. Like cold, wet slugs playing tug-of-war with your veins. You try not to gag. Some people still believe that bloodletting releases the poison. Others argue it weakens the patient. Historians still debate whether any of it helped at all or simply accelerated the end. Next, she mashes up some herbs, angelica root, garlic, maybe a hint of old bread, and smears the paste directly on your bubo. You scream. Quietly, it burns like sin. She mutters something about drawing out the badness. When it's over, you're bandaged in linen that smells like mold and regret. She gives you a small pouch of dried lavender and instructs you to keep it pressed to your nose to protect from air demons. You try not to laugh. She's serious. As you leave, you notice another patient slumped in the corner. He's barely conscious. His eyes flutter open just enough to make contact with yours. He's got the same swelling. You both nod, wordless like members of a secret and very unlucky club. You stumble back home, woozy. Everything aches, your vision swims, your stomach rebels. And then it happens, your first real fever. It wraps around you like a shroud, hot and suffocating. You strip off your clothes, drenched in sweat, then shiver uncontrollably seconds later. Lie in bed, slipping in and out of dreams. A pig in a bishop's hat sings to you. Your dead uncle gives you a spoon. A monk offers you a perfectly round stone and tells you it will save your soul. You wake at dusk. The world feels sideways. A neighbor knocks gently on your door and leaves a bowl of onion broth outside. No words, no waiting, just a silent offering. You manage 2 sips before your stomach flips. The rest ends up in a basin. You hate that basin. At some point in the night, someone tries to break in, not to rob you, but to ask for garlic. They're convinced it wards off death. You hand over what you have and tell them good luck. It's not like garlic helped you. The next morning you try a different healer. This one is a barber surgeon who moonlights as a pig castrator. Promising, right? He offers you 2 treatments. One involves pressing a hot iron to the swelling. The other requires binding a dead pigeon to your skin and letting it absorb the disease. You decline the iron dot an hour later. You're lying on your back with a limp pigeon strapped to your armpit. This is your life now. Should see improvement. By moonrise, he says confidently, you do not see improvement by moonrise. You do see blood and feathers stuck to your tunic, and a bubo that now seems angrier. It pulses with each heartbeat. Your whole body is one raw nerve. Your dreams that night are full of birds, dead ones, flying ones. One has your face. You begin to wonder, why are some people surviving? Is there a trick, a charm, a prayer that works? The village priest has taken to walking around with a cross made of juniper wood, insisting that those who confess quickly might be spared. You consider it. Then you cough so hard you pull a muscle. In your side, every breath hurts now. You realize deep down that none of the treatments are helping. Not the leeches, not the herbs, not the pigeons, not even the lavender satchel, which now smells faintly of rot. You start to prepare in other ways. You wash your face slowly, brush your hair, rituals that feel both absurd and sacred. You try to make your bed. You fold your cloak neatly, as if that will help, because part of you is beginning to suspect you won't wake up tomorrow, and if you do, you're not sure you want to. You don't remember falling asleep. You just remember the hammering loud, abrupt, and far too close to your door. You jolt upright, dizzy. Someone outside yells your name, your full name. That's never good. It's usually priests or tax collectors who use the full version. You stumble to the door. Through the slats you spot a town official red tunic, stained boots a bit too pale. He's holding a wooden plank and a pouch of nails. You don't open it. You already know what's coming. By order of the bailiff, he says through the crack. House is quarantined. But I'm too late, he cuts in. They saw your bubo yesterday. You're marked. Anyone else inside? You hesitate. No. He nods, not unkindly. You've got water? Food? Enough. You lie, and then he nails the door shut. Each thud feels like a coffin closing. The sound vibrates through your ribs. 4 nails at the top, 4 at the bottom. Then a splash of red paint. A crude cross on your door. It drips slowly, like blood. It's official now. You're locked in. Welcome to medieval quarantine. Unlike modern isolation, this isn't a helpful stay home and binge watch cooking shows situation. This is, we're going to physically seal you in with your illness and hope for the best. It wasn't always nails and paint. Some towns used ropes. Others used armed guards. But in many cases, homes were just closed up. People who couldn't walk were carried inside and left. Whole families bundled together, doors sealed, windows bricked, prayers mumbled. Historians still argue whether this practice saved more lives than it destroyed. On one hand, it prevented spread. On the other, it often condemned the healthy alongside. The sick you pace. The room feels smaller now. Your fever is back. You sweat through your tunic and strip it off, then put it back on because it's freezing suddenly. You drink the last of your water in 3 panicked gulps. The jug's dry. Now the broth is spoiled. The bread has molded. You try not to look at the pigeon remains still curled in the corner. Your bubo is purple now. Not good. It throbs like it's developing its own pulse. You touch it once gently. It feels squishy. Wrong. You imagine it. bursting like a rotten plum and immediately gag. You pound the door, but no one answers. Of course, they don single quotes T. Time gets strange. You sleep, wake, sweat, shake. You hallucinate. You're pretty sure you saw your grandmother sitting in the corner humming, and she's been dead for 3 years. You think a day passes. Maybe 2. Then you hear something outside. Scraping. Not footsteps, claws. You crawl to the crack in the door, eyes stinging from the fever. You see movement. Rats, 3 of them, 4. One scampers up the side of your house like it's done it 100 times. You slap at the crack, scream, try to scare them off. They don't even flinch. They've seen this before. They know. You try to sleep again, curling into your straw mattress. It smells like damp fur and biomal. The candle you lit earlier has burned down to a stub, dripping wax into your only bowl. You leave it. What's the point? You try to pray, but the words feel hollow. Your lips crack with every syllable. Deliver. You from evil, you whisper, and feel a nosebleed begin. At one point, someone walks by your window. You hear them pause. Then a second later, something soft hits the door thud. You wait. Then another. It's bread. Someone left you food. You scramble for the slat and reach through the gap beneath the door. A lump of hard crust, maybe from yesterday's market. Doesn't matter. You devour it like a beast. You cough it up 5 minutes later. You're not sure how long you lie there. The room's spinning. Your body's either frozen or on fire. The air smells like vinegar and sweat-soaked linen. The swelling has reached your neck now. You can't turn your head without crying out. And then, mercifully, absurdly, you laugh. Because this is ridiculous. You are sick, sealed in, surrounded by rats and ghosts. Your only visitor, a person brave enough to throw a crust of bread from a safe distance. You laugh so hard you cry, then you just cry. At some point in the blur, you imagine the future. You wonder if someday someone will look back and think, how did they survive that? And you want to answer, we didn't. We just held on as long as we could. You think about others you've known, friends, neighbors, that boy who ran errands for the baker, his mother, the girl with violets in her bonnet. You don't see them anymore. You wonder if anyone's still out there listening, or if the whole town is already quiet. You dream again, this time of water, clear streams, clean air, a bed with sheets. You wake to your own heartbeat pounding in your ears. It's still night. You're still here. The sound that finally rouses you isn't your own coughing or fevered moans. It's a cart, wooden wheels grinding against stone. Slow, deliberate. It squeaks once every few feet like the wheels carrying something heavier than usual. You drag yourself toward the slit in the shutters, careful not to knock over the ceramic bowl of yesterday's stale broth you couldn't finish. Outside, the square is bathed in gray morning light. And there it is, the plague cart. You've heard it before. You just hadn't seen it up close. Until now, a man in a hood walks beside it, face half covered with a cloth soaked in something sour. He's ringing a bell, a low clang, uneven and lonely. With each toll, he calls out the same phrase in a practiced monotone. Bring out your dead. You shudder. It's not just a grim line from a future comedy sketch. It's reality. And it's how bodies are collected now. There aren't enough priests, not enough coffins, Not enough dignity. From across the square, a door creaks open. Two boys no older than 12 drag a bundled figure to the edge of the steps. It looks heavy. The legs are tied together with rope, and the sheet around the face is stained dark. They drop the body with a dull thump, say nothing, and back away fast. The cart driver nods once and loads the corpse with an exhausted grunt. He doesn't judge. He's seen too many like this. You doubt he even asks anymore. You wonder if the boys had to carry their own mother, or maybe a grandfather. You hope not a sibling. Then it hits you. Your door is still nailed shut. What if you die in here? Who finds you? Who drags your body out? Who even notices? You bang weakly on the inside of your door, more to remind yourself that you exist than to get help. Your hand trembles. The skin is pale. Your knuckles cracked. You crawl back to your straw bedding, dizzy, whispering to yourself. Not prayers, not really. Just ... sounds. Anything to fill the space. Outside, the cart makes another loop. Another bell. Another body. One door over, you hear someone crying. Not loud, just low sobs. Could be a man, could be a woman. At this point, grief sounds the same. You try to imagine what it's like on the cart driver's side. Day after day, collecting what's left of a town. No time to mourn. No time to pause. Just grab, stack, repeat. Some carts carry 10, 15, 20 bodies at once. All ages, all shapes. Wrapped in sheets if they're lucky, naked if not. You once saw two corpses bound together because there wasn't room to separate them. No last rites. No candles. No hymns. That used to matter. Now, survival is the ritual. The cart disappears from view. In the quiet that follows, you hear a priest singing a hymn somewhere, his voice raw but determined. You remember how funerals used to sound. Now, a corpse might be lucky to get a muttered blessing and a shove with a stick. Some towns have turned to burning, bodies in mass giant pyres in the fields. Others dig pits, mass graves. You've heard of places where they ran out of shovels and used hands instead. One rumor says in Avignon, bodies were stacked 5 deep and covered with quicklime. Historians still debate whether the pits helped contain the disease or made it worse. You want to believe people will be remembered. But when the dead are measured in thousands, memory begins to fail. You find a scrap of parchment and a charcoal stub. You write your name, just in case. Fold it neatly and tuck it into the lining of your cloak. It's stupid, probably. But if someone finds you, you want them to know. You don't want to be just another bundle on a cart. Later, you think you hear chanting. You peek through the slat again. Flagellants. A group of them, men with bare backs, walking slowly through the street, lashing themselves with whips tipped in iron. Their skin is raw. Some wear hoods. Others let the blood stream down their shoulders. Like a badge. They sing in Latin, their voices fervent. They believe the plague is punishment, and this is their offering. You can't look away. One man collapses mid-step. The others march over him. He's either trampled or lifted. Hard to tell. It's all a blur of dust, blood, and swinging rope. And then, just as quickly, they're gone. The square empties, silence again. You realize your fever has subsided a little. The pounding in your head is duller. Your bubo no longer burns, it just throbs. like a bruise that's settling in for the long haul. You drink the last of your rainwater and wait. Somehow, even amidst all this, the carts, the cries, the dead, you're still here, barely. You rest your head against the wall and close your eyes. But just before sleep takes you, you hear it again, clang, ring out your dead. You stop counting the days, time loses shape when the sun is blocked by smoke and your dreams bleed into waking. You drift somewhere between fever and numbness. Hunger gnaws, thirst cracks your lips, but the weight of survival presses heavier than both. When the door is finally unsealed, it doesn't creak, it groans. The man outside, wrapped in waxed cloth, recoils slightly when he sees you. You don't blame him. You probably look half dead. You're still alive, he says, sounding surprised. You blink at him, unsure what to say. Is that good news or bad? He drops a small satchel of millet and a flask of water at your feet. Don't come close, he warns. Just stay well. You nod slowly and close the door again, leaving it slightly ajar. Being sealed in once was enough, but as you step outside for the first time in what must be over a week, you realize the world is different. Not just quiet, but wrong. There's no laughter, no sound of carts hawking goods, just the occasional flutter of crows or a cough from an unseen alley, and people, those who are still around, don't look at each other. They avoid eye contact like it might carry the plague. Everyone walks wide arcs around everyone else. It's a strange dance, like avoidance. You recognize a neighbor, but she's covering her mouth with a linen veil soaked in vinegar and doesn't return your nod. Then you hear it, shouting. A crowd has gathered near the well. Something's happening. You creep closer, staying in the inn, shadow of the walls, and catch snippets of conversation. They poisoned the well. I saw him drop something. They brought it from the east on purpose. The fear in their voices is loud and sharp. You spot the accused, a man you've never seen before. Worn clothes, foreign accent. He protests, but no one listens. The crowd surges. Someone throws a stone. You step back quickly. Heart-pounding. Fear has become its own epidemic now. You remember? Hearing how in Strasbourg, entire Jewish communities were blamed and burned. Some said they poisoned rivers. Others claimed they conjured the plague with magic. It didn't matter that they were dying too. Fear doesn't wait for facts. Historians still argue whether the scapegoating was orchestrated by desperate leaders or emerged from raw panic. Here, now, it just feels inevitable. You retreat back home and lock the door behind you. Not with nails this time, just a latch. But it feels final. In the days that follow, paranoia escalates. Cats are blamed, then dogs, then certain herbs, then comets. One man insists he saw a woman speak to a raven and that she started the plague. She was beaten and left in the square. You don't know if she survived the night. You keep your head down. The town begins to rot, not just physically, but spiritually. Trust evaporates. Friends stop visiting. Families splinter. Even children stop playing. One night there's fire. A house is torched. Someone said the people inside had the sickness and refused to stay in. No one helps. No one even screams. You watch from a distance, and the flames reflect in the empty windows of the surrounding homes. When the town's priest reappears, he speaks from the top of a wagon, not the church. He looks thinner, hoarser. His sermons are less about salvation now and more about judgment. He tells the crowd that God is watching, that their sins have brought this upon them, that suffering is divine. You notice people nodding, not with hope, with resignation. Maybe it is punishment. Maybe it's all your fault for skipping morning prayers or swearing at your neighbor last harvest. Or maybe none of that matters. You head back into your home and find a rat dead in the corner. Not from poison, you're sure of that. It just dropped. It's not bloated, just limp. You wonder, did it die of plague too? No one's certain. Some say the rats carry the fleas that carry the disease. Others believe the rats are the disease. You burn the body anyway. You use a stick to move it to the fireplace, not trusting your hands. The smell is worse than you imagined, but at least it's done. You sit down by the fire and look at your hands. They're thinner now. Your skin sags slightly. You haven't eaten properly in days, but the fever has broken. The bubo is still there, but duller, less angry. Your body somehow is still fighting. You aren't sure how many others can say the same. That night you dream of voices, laughter, the smell of meat roasting over a fire, the press of warm bodies in a market, someone playing a flute off-key. Simple things, things that feel like relics now. When you wake, it's still quiet and cold. You wrap yourself in your cloak and go outside, and there it is, a cat, alive, black-furred, sitting on a fence post, blinking slowly at you. Someone might have chased it off yesterday, but you just nod to it, because somehow, against the odds, you're still here, and so is it, for now. You bury your first corpse at dawn, not yours, obviously, but someone you knew well. It's Thomas the Cooper, barrel maker, grumbler, once told you ale should taste like wet wood and sin, and always smelled faintly of both. You find him slumped over a bench outside his workshop, one hand still resting on a half-finished keg. His eyes are glassy, his lips parted in a half-snore that never finishes. He's alone. There's no one left to notice. His apprentice died a week ago, and his wife vanished days before that. You hesitate, then tug the worn cloak off his shoulders and cover his face. You don't cry, not really. There's a dryness to grief now. Too much death makes it quiet, heavy, like ash that's settled and never gets blown away. You could leave him there. No one would blame you. But something inside says no. So you fetch a broken spade and drag him, gently as you can, to the edge of town, where others have started doing the same. There's no ceremony, no priest. You find an empty patch by a large linden tree. The ground is soft, the dirt black and cold. You don't dig deep, your strength won't allow it. Just enough to cover his body and whisper a name. Thomas. You pile rocks to mark the spot, even though you know they'll probably be scattered by dogs or rain. The wind shifts, and the air smells like time. Someone nearby must still be burning herbs in desperate hope. It doesn't mask the other smells, rot, smoke, damp wool. You breathe shallowly and step back from the grave. You've become your own priest now, and your own undertaker. The town has no system anymore, no records, no rites. The graveyard is full, overflowing. Some bodies are stacked behind the chapel wall. Others are burned in open fields, pyres fed by furniture, hay, even wooden icons. The bishop would have been appalled, burning religious imagery, is forbidden, but so is dying without confession. And lately, everyone's been breaking rules. You walk back past a field that used to be full of turnips. Now it's just churned mud and stumps. A pig runs wild, squealing. No one chases it. It belongs to no one now. You catch sight of a funeral procession in the distance. 3 figures in black, walking slowly. One of them, a woman, carries a candle that's already blown out. They stop at a ditch, drop a bundle, and walk away. No song, no prayer, just silence. You return to your home and sit by the hearth. The fire is low. You don't have much wood left, or food, or patience. You haven't seen a real priest in days. The one who visited last week, Father Henrik, had black rings around his eyes and hands that trembled. He tried to give last rites to a dying boy, but collapsed before he finished the Lord's Prayer. You never saw him again. Now, people bury their own. Or they don't. Some can't manage it. They leave the bodies in beds, covered in cloth. Others seal rooms and never return. One rumor says a man buried his whole family in the wine cellar, and now sleeps on top of the barrels. There's a deep superstition running through everything. Some say you shouldn't speak the names of the dead. Others wear amulets carved from rowan wood or carry bones blessed by wandering friars. You even saw a woman burn her own hair to ward off spirits. The smell lingered all day. Historians still argue whether these rituals were rooted in folklore, desperation, or both. But here, in this moment, you realize it doesn't matter. It's about control, about doing something. You look at your hands. They're still steady. Your breath, though shallow, is even. The swelling on your neck has shrunk slightly. You can swallow without grimacing. It's almost progress. You let yourself feel that tiny flicker of hope, then immediately bury it. Because that's dangerous. Hope is what hurts when it goes. Wrong. That night, you light a candle for Thomas. You place it by the shutter and watch it flicker against the glass, a tiny beacon in the darkness. Not because it'll save you, not because it's magical, but because it's the last thing left to do. The wind rattles the shutters once. Twice, you pull your cloak tighter and lie down on your straw pallet. Tomorrow, you might dig another grave, or maybe someone will dig yours. Either way, you'll be ready. You hear them before you see them, the low murmur of voices, rhythmic and strained, echoing through the misty air. Then the whip cracks snap against bare flesh. A collective grunt follows. And then again, snap. You step carefully to the edge of the alleyway and peer out. A procession of flagellants is moving through the main street. They're barefoot, wrapped in rough wool cloaks around their waists, and not much else. Their backs are exposed, bruised, bloodied, and marked with self-inflicted lashes. Each man holds a whip of knotted cord or metal-tipped leather, swinging it over his shoulder with mechanical regularity. It thwacks the skin with sickening rhythm. You want to look away. You don't. One chants in Latin, another cries softly. A few sing off-key, but fervent. It's not a melody for comfort. It's one of atonement. They believe their pain is purification, that by suffering in the open, they can draw God's attention, beg forgiveness, spare the town. Some towns welcomed them. Others, especially in Italy, banned them. Historians still argue whether their movements spread the plague further by marching from city to city, or simply reflected a desperate yearning for meaning in a world unraveling. This group looks like it's been traveling for days. Their feet are wrapped in strips of cloth stained brown with blood and mud. They carry crucifixes, wooden icons, and a banner with a painted Virgin Mary, whose eyes seem to weep. They chant louder as they pass the market square, where no one buys or sells anything anymore. Behind them trails a boy, maybe 12, dragging a bucket filled with ashes. He sprinkles handfuls at intervals, a makeshift ritual. You wonder who told him that was part of it. The townsfolk, what few are left, watch silently from windows, behind veils or shutters. No one joins. No one intervenes. You feel a strange mix of revulsion and awe. Here are men actively choosing pain, as if they're trying to outrun the plague by getting there before it does. Whip by whip dot they pass your street and disappear down. Toward the river dot you step out, cautiously. The air smells of sweat, vinegar, and something faintly metallic blood, maybe. A small scrap of fabric, likely torn from one of the flagellant's cloaks, lies in the dirt. You don't touch it, dot instead. You follow their path at a distance. You find them later by the riverbank, collapsed in a loose circle. Some pray, others sleep. One is wrapping a bloodied strip of linen around another's arm. A few villagers approach, slowly offering bread, cheese, anything they can spare. An old woman places apples on a flat stone near them. Mumbling a blessing, you sit on a nearby rock and watch dot no one speaks to you. But you feel something strange in their presence. Not holiness, exactly. Just commitment. These people have given up everything to try and save others through their pain. It's terrifying, but also a little comforting. You cough once, just quietly, and a few heads turn. You raise a hand in apology. They nod back, no judgment. One of them catches your eye. A younger man, maybe your age. His face is gaunt but calm. He walks over and hands you a sprig of hyssop. No words, just the plant. You recognize it used for purification in Scripture. Maybe it means something. You tuck it into your belt. When you return home that evening, something shifts inside you. Not faith exactly, but clarity. You can't control the disease. You can't control the rats or the fever or the fear. But you can control how you move through it. You wash your face and hands with the last of your clean water. You sweep the floor with a broom made of bundled twigs. You relight your hearth, not because you're cold, but because it makes the house feel alive. Then, on a whim, you walk to your neighbor's door, the one who used to leave broth outside yours. You knock. There's a pause. Then the door creaks. She's pale, thin, but standing. You don't speak. You just nod, and she nods back. A moment of shared survival. You leave her a strip of clean cloth from your tunic and the last of your dried thyme. She places a hand to her heart and thanks small things. But they matter now. You lie down that night and press the hyssop sprig to your lips, not because it's magical, but because it's yours. Outside, the wind whistles gently. A cart creaks in the distance. Maybe the same man collecting the dead. But tonight he does not knock on your door. By now, the world has shrunk, not in distance. You can still walk the same roads, past the same bakery with its cracked sign, the same chapel with its crooked bell tower, but in presence, fewer people, fewer voices, less movement. The silence is thicker, more constant. It wraps around you like damp wool dot. You step outside each morning, unsure what to expect. One day, a man you've known for years is tending his herb garden, waving cheerfully with a half-eaten leek in hand. The next, the garden is untouched, and his door is marked with the familiar red cross. Shops remain shuttered. Markets are reduced to quiet exchanges at a distance, goods left on a cloth, coins dropped in a bowl of vinegar. No haggling, no gossip, just a glance and a nod. You trade a dried fish for a half loaf of bread. Neither of you speaks. Life hasn't stopped entirely. It's just been narrowed to the barest edges of function. You've taken to doing strange things to feel normal again. Straightening the jars on your shelf, retying the same piece of twine around your cloak, counting the cracks in the ceiling beams, things that serve no purpose but make the hours feel shaped. And then there's the loneliness. Not just the absence of people, but the uncertainty of who's left. You catch yourself remembering faces Raina, who used to sell apples and always gave the bruised ones away for free. Edgar, the boy who ran errands in exchange for stories. You haven't seen them in weeks. Maybe they moved. Maybe they didn't. One evening, you walk past the old tavern. The sign still swings in the breeze, creaking gently. You peer inside. The benches are there, the long table. Even a tankard tipped on its side, long dried, but no one. The air smells stale ale, soot, and abandonment. A place built for gathering, now hollow as a drum. You sit on the bench and close your eyes just for a moment. You almost hear the old noise. Laughter, a lute out of tune, arguments over dice. Then it's gone again. The world has become a museum of echoes. You walk further. You see someone hanging laundry. A tiny act of rebellion. The clothes are worn, torn at the seams, but clean. They flutter against the sky like surrender flags. You pause and smile faintly. The smell of rosemary reaches you from a nearby window. Someone is boiling herbs again, clinging to the miasma theory. You don't blame them. At this point, ritual is therapy. You visit the chapel out of curiosity. The door creaks open. Dust motes swirl in the late light. Pews are empty, save one. A figure kneels near the altar. You don't interrupt. You just watch quietly from the back. The altar has changed. Gone are the golden relics and embroidered cloths. Now it holds a simple wooden cross and a bowl of clean water. On the wall hangs a crude drawing, 2 hands, cupped, painted with care. Someone's attempt to show faith when symbols fail. Historians may someday argue whether religion during the plague provided comfort or further despair. For you, it's complicated. The prayers don't always land. But the ritual helps. Outside, a rooster crows, loud, defiant. You hadn't heard one in days. You follow the sound and find the creature strutting in a garden, proud and oblivious. It reminds you that not all life is paused. Animals, birds, the weeds pushing up between cobblestones, they all persist. You see ivy climbing over a shop sign, a sprig of clover poking through a grave marker. Nature, as always, has zero regard for human plans. You sit on the steps and watch a spider rebuild its web in the window frame. The town may be half gone, but the seasons don't stop. The air smells faintly of soil and distant rain. You take a slow breath, and for the first time in weeks, you realize something. You don't feel feverish. The aches have dulled. The cough that once shook your ribs now stirs only occasionally. Your bubo, though still visible, no longer pulses with pain. You're not well not yet, but you're a dot better. You feel your stomach rumble and realize you're hungry. It's such a mundane, human sensation that you laugh. You head home and check your stores. A crust of bread, a bit of dried carrot, a pinch of salt. You eat slowly, savoring each bite like it's a feast. You clean your bowl, sweep your floor, then sit by the window as the sun dips behind the chimney line. The sky is orange, fading to blue. It looks the same as it did before the plague, but you know better now, and still you're here. You don't smell it all at once. It creeps in gradually, like fog in the distance, something between burnt wood, spoiled meat, and a sickly sweet rot that turns your stomach before you've even identified it. You wrinkle your nose, cover your face with your sleeve. Doesn't help. The town stinks, and not in a poetic, oh, the decay of society way. No, this is literal. It's everywhere. It clings to walls, to clothes, to your hair. It sinks into your skin and stays there, no matter how much rosemary or lavender you hang from the beams. You venture out hoping the fresh air will help. It doesn't. The square is worse today. Someone burned a pile of linens. A priest's robe smolders on top, the smoke rising in lazy spirals. A small group stands nearby, tossing in anything that might carry the bad air. Bedding, shoes, a wooden doll. One woman tosses in a loaf of bread and crosses herself. You doubt it was infected. But logic doesn't hold much weight these days. The miasma theory has taken hold here like mold on a damp wall. People genuinely believe that the air is poisoned, that illness floats invisibly, clinging to smells. So they burn everything: herbs, hair, entire homes. One man set fire to his latrine and nearly burned down the tavern. You pass another doorway and smell vinegar. Someone scrubbing their stoop with it. You've done the same. Doesn't work, of course, but it feels like protection. Historians still debate how effective these fumigations were. Some records suggest a minor reduction in spread. Others think it just made people dizzy. You clutch your little pouch of sage and mint leaves, not for any real reason, just because everyone else does. It's tied to your belt like a charm, a smoky talisman against something no one understands. The bodies are buried now, but their absence is louder than their presence ever was. And even as the carts vanish, the scent doesn't. It seeps from the walls of abandoned homes. It oozes from under floorboards. You start to wonder if it's you who smells that way. So you scrub again with soap made from ash and lard. You scrub your arms until the skin is pink. You clean your hair with cold water and crushed rose petals. It's not much, but when you sit in the breeze afterward, wrapped in a rough linen cloth and sipping sour ale, you feel almost human again. That doesn't last, because your neighbor's dog is barking constantly. It hasn't stopped since morning. You finally get up to check. The door to their home is ajar. You step closer. The dog then frantic paces in front of it. You peer inside and immediately turn away. Another one. The smell hits you before the sight. You leave a bowl of water for the dog and walk away. The next day, the wind shifts. The smell reaches the next street. Someone complains. Someone else threatens to set fire to the whole house. You say nothing. Everyone's just trying to reclaim control through action, no matter how irrational. Meanwhile, the perfumers have become unexpected heroes. Yes, PERFUMERS. The ones who used to sell scented oils and floral waters now walk the streets with garlands, waving censers full of frankincense, myrrh, even tar. Anything that masks the stench. They're paid in loaves or scraps of meat. You see one with a beaked mask, long and curved, stuffed with dried herbs. It's absurd and terrifying at once. The mask catches the wind like a sail, and he looks more like a bird than a man. Those masks will someday become icons of this time. For now, they're rare, expensive, mostly seen on wandering plague doctors who offer poultices, prayers, and poorly translated Greek cures. One such man visits the square that evening. He arrives on a donkey, dressed in waxed robes. His apprentice carries a crate of dried frogs and cured toads. You watch from a distance as he lectures about balancing the bile with powdered coral and fish bile. He charges a coin per consultation. No one argues. At this point, even a talking goat offering remedies might get customers. You skip the line. Instead, you hang another sprig of rosemary above your door, light a tiny cone of dried sage, and open both shutters wide. It doesn't help much. The stink is baked in now. You dream of clean air, of walking through a pine forest or standing on a cliff by the sea, of soap, real soap. Maybe with honey. In your dream, someone hands you a towel and says, "You smell like spring." You wake up laughing. Then coughing. Your lungs still haven't fully healed. There's a rattle there that's grown quieter, but not gone. Still, you rise, boil water, rinse your hands and face, wrap a strip of linen around your mouth before going outside. It's routine. Now. In the square, someone set up a basin with ash and rainwater. A sign says, "Clean thyself, save thy soul." You dip your hands in, scrub, pretend, but even as the world around you wilts, you carry on, because you must. And you smell. Terrible. But you're alive. And today, that's enough. You wake to coughing, but this time, it isn't yours. It's coming from the street below. A dry, rasping bark that rattles like old parchment and rises up through the shutters. Then another, and another. You sit up slowly, listening. More voices, low murmurs, a few hurried footsteps. You move to the window, careful to stay in the shadows. There's a small group gathering at the edge of the square. And for once, it isn't a burial. They're talking about fashion, not silk gowns or brocade. Tunics. That world is long gone. This is survival style. Everyone is showing off their latest attempt at plague prevention. You spot at least 3 beaked masks, 4 layers of scarves, someone with a string of garlic bulbs draped around their neck like pearls. You snort quietly. It's ridiculous. And yet, here you are, clutching your own satchel of mint and sage, like it's a holy relic. Medieval PPE has become a patchwork of folklore, desperation, and the occasional creative flair. There's the woman wearing gloves made from pigskin, because her cousin said pigs never get sick. The baker's son has fashioned a hood out of waxed parchment, tied tightly around his head with cheesecloth. It makes him look like an overripe turnip, but he claims it works. Your favorite is the man with the rose-petal glasses. 2 hand-blown glass lenses filled with crushed rose petals, sealed with wax. He can barely see, keeps tripping over the cobblestones. But by God, his nose is protected. You consider your own ensemble. A wool cloak damp with vinegar, gloves too big for your hands, and a necklace of dried chamomile flowers. It smells faintly of tea and regret. You added a feather last week just to make it less depressing. Some of these ideas stem from actual medical texts. The beaked masks, for instance, were filled with aromatic herbs to filter the air. Theories about sweet smells combating illness go back centuries. Historians still debate whether these measures helped prevent plague or just made people faint from inhaling too much myrrh. Still, you can't help but admire the effort. People are scared, sure, but also inventive. You join the group by the square. A man with a soot-smudged face is explaining how he sleeps with a raw onion on his chest. Draws out the poison, he insists. If it's black in the morning, it worked. Another swears by sulfur soap. Only wash your left foot, though, he adds gravely. Not both. That's when the fever comes. You nod along, expression blank, filing each bizarre remedy away for later. You're not convinced, but you're also not exactly full of better ideas. Nearby, a cloth vendor sets up a makeshift stall. She's selling strips of dyed linen, some soaked in oils, others embroidered with symbols of protection, stars, crosses, even the occasional oddly shaped fish. Her hands are gloved. She touches nothing directly. You trade her a small packet of dried apples for a piece of green, cloth stitched with what she claims is a Greek prayer. She doesn't know what it says. Neither do you. But it's pretty, and it gives your outfit a bit of flair. There's comfort in this strange ritual of dressing for the invisible enemy. You feel less helpless when you look protected, even if it's just a trick of the mind. The town crier arrives around midday, ringing his bell not for plague news, but for rules. New ones. All persons, he declares, are to wear face coverings soaked in wormwood and angelica. All boots must be cleaned with ash upon entering the chapel. No more than 3 to a household outside at any time. You'd laugh, but he looks like he hasn't slept in days. One woman asks if you can substitute bay leaf for wormwood. He shrugs. If you must. Later, you walk past the apothecary. It's barely a shop now, just a table near the door with rows of tiny bottles and handwritten notes. One claims to contain plague water made from sage, rue, mint, and a splash of holy well water. The bottle is dusty. You wonder how holy the well is if the label's peeling. A boy stands guard nearby, holding a staff with feathers tied to the top. To keep evil away, he says proudly. You buy a bundle of dried marigold anyway. Just in case, back home, you hang your new green cloth near the window and boil a small pot of water with crushed mint. The steam fills the room. For a moment, it smells clean, not healthy. Not safe, just better. That night you sit by the hearth and mend a tear in your cloak. It's become a strange sort of armor. It smells awful. It's itchy, but it's yours. Every patch tells a story. A week ago, you used a torn sleeve too. Replace a slipper sole. You've thought about making a hood out of that spare flour sack. Maybe add a few painted charms. You're not sure who you're protecting yourself from any more of the plague, the fear, or simply the weight of silence. But in a world unraveling, you dress the part. You tie the rosemary tighter around your wrist. You pin a seashell to your collar for luck. You look ridiculous, but you feel just a little stronger, Dot, and sometimes that's enough. The crying wakes you before dawn, Dot. At first, you think it's part of a dream, soft, hiccuping sobs drifting through a haze of half-sleep. But then it sharpens, becomes real. You sit up, blinking, and peer through the cracked shutter, Dot. It's coming. From the house across the alley, you haven't seen anyone there in over a week. It used to belong to the candlemaker's family. You remember them always busy, always working, always laughing too loudly at supper. 4 kids, one of them barely tall enough to reach the WINDOWSILL dot. The crying continues. You hesitate, Dot. Then you do something you haven't done in days. You step outside. The air is cold. DAMP. Your cloak sticks to your skin, and the bundle of herbs tied to your waist has lost its scent. You cross the alley and knock gently on the door frame. The crying stops. A pause, then a voice. Hi. Young. Who is it? You push the door open slowly. Inside. It smells of wax and sickness. The light from your small lantern flickers across the walls, casting long shadows. And there, sitting beside a bundle of rags that was once a bed, you see her. A girl. No older than 6. Her face is pale and tear-streaked. Her hands clutch a candle, half melted and unlit. She stares at you with eyes too wide, too aware. She doesn't scream, doesn't flinch. Just says, they're all gone. You kneel beside her, carefully. Slowly, you see what she means. 4 forms, still and covered in blankets. One small, one larger. You don't ask. You don't need to. You ask her name. Isabel, she whispers. You wrap your cloak around her tiny shoulders and lift her gently. She doesn't resist. She just holds the candle like it's a doll, something familiar. Back at your home, you build a fire, not for warmth, but for light. You give her water, a crust of bread, a strip of dried apple. She eats in silence, then curls up beside your hearth, fast asleep. You sit across from her, staring at the flames. You hadn't expected this. You hadn't planned for this. The next morning, she's awake before you. She watches you carefully, like a wild animal, unsure whether it's safe to come closer. You give her a small task, arranging dried herbs in a bowl. She does it carefully, precisely. You ask no questions. She offers no stories. But something shifts. Now. Your routine includes 2 bowls, 2 spoons, 2 sets of footsteps echoing faintly on the worn floorboards. You find yourself muttering old rhymes again, not for your own benefit, but to keep her from sinking too far into silence. She doesn't laugh, not yet, but her eyes flicker with the beginning of something. One day she speaks. My brother said the rats talked. You nod solemnly. They say awful things. She smiles, just barely. You begin walking the edges of town together, small steps. Her hand in yours, clutching tightly when she hears a crow or a sudden cough. You show her the ivy creeping up the well wall, the wildflowers that have sprung in the field behind the chapel. You tell her that when the sun shines through the stained glass windows, the whole floor glows like magic. You both go to see it. And it does. It's not that the world is safe now. It isn't. The plague hasn't vanished. People still die. The cart still comes. The well still smells faintly of rot, but you're not alone, and neither is she. You see others begin to emerge, slowly. A woman sweeping her stoop, a man mending a boot outside his door, a boy chasing a chicken, laughing until he coughs. The town isn't back, but it breathes. You teach Isabel how to grind dried mint into powder, how to boil water and not burn the bottom of the pot, how to fold linen into strips for bandages. She teaches you how to braid grass and how to listen to birds without looking. You remember her giggle when a sparrow landed on your shoulder and promptly pooped. You're blessed now, she said, solemn as a monk. You decided not to argue. You find an old slate and teach her letters, starting with her name. She draws it carefully, then adds yours beneath it, in crooked capitals. She insists on drawing a rat beside both names. To scare the real ones, she says, you hang it by the door. A few days later, you find a basket on your stoop inside, a loaf of bread, a few apples, and a note for the girl. You don't know who left it. You don't ask. Some kindness. Doesn't need names. One evening, you light a candle and give her the match. She grins, leans close, and lights it with care. You whisper, for those we've lost. She whispers, and those still here. And then, in the quiet glow of that tiny flame, the world small, broken, and quiet feels just a little more whole. The rich are gone. Not all, of course, but enough that you notice. The manor houses are shuttered. The shutters stay closed, even when the wind rattles them all night long. The fancy carriages no longer clatter down the cobblestone roads. The vêtements, fine silks, the perfumes, the embroidered gloves, they've all disappeared behind locked gates and drawn curtains. Some left early, long before the plague carts began their grim rounds. They heard whispers, saw signs, and took their silver to country estates miles from town, far from the crowds, the filth, and the dying. They took their doctors too. The rest of you stayed behind. It's not exactly bitterness. You feel more like bone-deep weariness. They could afford to leave. You couldn't even afford a second blanket. You watch a raven perch on the crumbling fountain in the square. It pecks at a bit of fabric, then flies off. The fountain hasn't run in weeks. Nearby, Isabel tries to balance a stick across a broken barrel. You smile at her ingenuity. A makeshift game. Her laughter, still rare, flutters up like a bird startled into the sky. You spend your days now finding food. Not farming, not really. It's too early for new crops, and the fields are mostly abandoned. You scavenge wild onions near the churchyard, a few bitter roots in the woods, a patch of cabbages in someone's overgrown garden, the manor gardens. You don't go near them. The gates are chained, and there are rumors of traps, curses, even ghosts. One boy tried to climb the wall. He didn't come back. Or maybe he just ran away. These days, the line between missing and dead is a blurry one. You remember the feasts they used to throw. Roasted goose, sugared plums, bread soft as clouds. Once the Lord's cook threw a whole tray of burnt pastries out back, and you got to 2. Eat 4. Now, you boil cabbage in a dented pot and feel lucky. The wealthy may have fled, but their absence lingers like perfume in an empty room. Their coats hang in closets. Their beds are still made. You peeked through one window and saw a candle still sitting in the holder, untouched. Sometimes you think the buildings themselves look surprised to be alone. Historians still argue how. Watch the plague shifted power. Some say it broke the back of feudalism, that the laborers who survived could demand better treatment, higher wages. But standing here in this moment, all you see is decay. Still, something is changing. A new notice is pinned to the chapel door. Work needed for spring planting. Payment in bread and cloth. Unheard of before. No one paid the poor in anything but bruises and blessings. You mark the location on a scrap of paper and plan to walk out there with Isabel tomorrow. Not for the work, not yet. Just to see who's still standing. Later that day, someone knocks on your door. Not the bailiff. Not a priest, Dot, it's Marta, the widow who used to bake honey cakes in the alley by the dye shop. You haven't seen her since her son died. "I've extra flour," she says, holding out a sack. You've the girl. You nod, overwhelmed by the gesture. That night you knead dough by candlelight, showing Isabel how to shape it into rough little rounds. She gets more flour on her nose than the table, but she's smiling, really smiling, like a child should. When the bread bakes, the smell fills your home. It's nothing like the old days, no sugar, no spice, but it's warm, and it's real. You break the first loaf in half, offer it to Marta. She accepts, eyes glistening. There's something sacred in that shared silence. You sit together and listen to the wind, the crackle of the fire, the soft chewing of a child who has known too much too soon. You don't speak. Of the rich, you don't need to. They've already become something distant like myths. You don't envy them anymore. You pity them, locked away in their lonely estates, afraid of the world. Afraid of you. You survived. You stayed, Dot, and tomorrow you'll plant cabbage because you're still here, and the ground is thawing. The frost is gone. Not completely. Some mornings still bite at your fingers, and you can see your breath if you exhale too hard, but the earth is soft. The trees have that faint shimmer of green at their tips, like they're thinking about. Blooming, Dot, you and Isabel stand at the edge of a field just outside town. Dot, it used to belong to someone, but no one's claimed it in weeks, maybe months. Now the rows are crooked, overgrown, half frozen. A rake lies abandoned by a fence post, rusting in the morning dew. You look at her and shrug. Let's see what's left. Together you begin clearing the weeds. You don't know much about farming, but you've watched enough, and your hands have grown strong again, stronger than they were when you could barely lift your own water jug. Isabel hums a song under her breath, a lullaby, maybe, or something she made up. You don't ask. You just let her keep humming while you pull dead vines from the dirt. The air smells different now, Dot, fresher, Dot, still hints of ash and damp wool, but underneath, soil, new growth, possibility. Dot, back in town, more doors are opening, carefully, cautiously. People sweep thresholds, patch roofs, hang herbs not to ward off death, but for the scent. One man sets up a bench to mend shoes. Another sharpens knives. Life stirs like a sleepy animal, uncertain but persistent. Someone leaves a jug of goat's milk on your doorstep. You don't know who. You share it with Isabel in 2 clay cups, drinking slowly. It's slightly sour. You both make a face and laugh. That night you attend your first gathering in months. A fire is lit in the square. Not for cremation, not for warding off miasma, just warmth. People sit in a loose circle, spaced instinctively, still wary. A man plays a lute missing 2 strings. A woman sings softly, off-key but sweet. Someone brings broth, someone else offers cider. You sit beside Marta and Isabel, wrapped in your patched cloak, and feel something you haven't felt since before the plague. Community. It's ragged, quiet, tentative, but it's there. A child recites a rhyme, the same one Isabel whispered in her sleep during her worst fever. You glance at her, and she smiles. We used to say that at bedtime. She says you don't ask what happened then. Some stories can wait. The talk turns gently to rebuilding. What? To plant. Which roofs still need repairs? Who's seen any of the Lord's men? None have returned. No messages, no orders. The plague didn't ask for status. It took whoever it liked. Now the fields and farms may belong to whoever dares to claim them. Is that legal? Someone asks. A shrug. Is anything any more? Historians will later describe this moment as one of quiet revolution, when villages took power back simply by surviving. But here, in this square, it just feels like common sense. The town is smaller now, fewer names, fewer candles in the chapel, window, but it breathes, and you start to imagine things beyond tomorrow. You help build a garden bed with a neighbor, plant leeks and onions. You trade a spool of thread for goat cheese. You mend your shoes with scrap leather and a sharpened nail. And you teach Isabel to write. She scratches letters into a wax tablet with the stub of a stylus. Her name. Your name. Then, without prompting, she adds the word hope. You freeze. Did you learn that? She shrugs. Marta said it. She said, wear it now. You look at her small hands, ink smudged and trembling with effort, and realize she's right. You are. You're the hope. Not because you chose to be, but because you're here. Still breathing, still trying, still human. You clean the hearth. Bake. Bread. Brush the dust from your one remaining tunic. You find joy in boiling cabbage, in walking without fever, in hearing another voice call your name across the alley, and you begin to believe, not in magic, not even in miracles. But in endurance. 1 slow, steady breath at a time. Spring unfolds slowly, like an apology. It comes not with fireworks or fanfare, but in the tiniest details, the way the frost retreats from windowsills, how the wind carries more birdsong than ash, how moss begins to reclaim the stone well, curling over it like green lace. You wake one morning to silence, but not the suffocating kind. It's a calm quiet, broken only by the creak of wood as the sun warms your shutters. You open them wide and breathe in the air. It no longer smells like death. It smells like rain. Isabel is already awake, crouched by the door, braiding together little sprigs of mint and sage. For the windows, she says, so the smell stays nice. You nod. You don't say it aloud, but you've been waiting for this. Not the change in weather, the change in weight. The invisible heaviness that's clung to every wall, every breath, every hesitant footstep for months. It's lifting. People walk differently now. Shoulders a little higher. Faces uncovered more often. The masks, those terrible, beautiful, useless masks, hang like relics by doorways or are tossed into the fire with quiet ceremony. You keep one tucked away in a box, along with the first letter Isabel ever wrote to you, your old herb pouch, and the stub of a candle burned through during the worst of it. You don't want to forget. The town isn't healed. It's changed. Entire streets are empty. Some homes will never be reopened. Some names are never spoken. But those who remain are stitching a life back together from the fragments. The chapel bell rings for the first time in weeks. You and Isabel walk hand in hand to the square, where a new notice is posted, not a warning, not a prayer, but a plan, a gathering, a meeting of the remaining townsfolk to decide what happens next, who plants what, how land is shared, what to do with the houses. No one has claimed. You listen as people speak, gently, cautiously, but with purpose. A widow offers her husbands tools. A shepherd without sheep offers to rebuild fences. Marta offers bread. You offer help, and no one laughs. Because here, now, help is everything. You volunteer to clear the old schoolhouse. It's been locked for months. You open it slowly, expecting ghosts. But all you find is dust and scattered slates, the echo of laughter barely clinging to the rafters. Isabel helps you sweep. She arranges the chalk. She points to the wall and says we should hang something bright here. So you do. A piece of old linen dyed with wildflowers. Simple, rough, but cheerful. You teach her how to hold a quill properly. Her hand trembles. She curses under her breath. You pretend not to hear, one letter at a time. That evening you sit in the doorway of your home, watching the sun sink behind the thatched roofs. The sky is streaked with pink. A soft breeze carries the scent of lavender from someone's window. Boxed out, it could be any year, but it's this year, and you're still here. You write in your journal for the first time in weeks, survived the plague, planted cabbage. Isabel can now spell turnip without help. Progress. A dog barks somewhere. A bell chimes. You smile. There are still worries, always will be, but they no longer fill every space. There's room now for breath, for thought, for rebuilding, for dreaming. Tomorrow, you'll walk to the woods to check the stream, maybe gather herbs. Isabel wants to learn about wild garlic. She says she's going to make stew. You nod seriously, then slip her an extra carrot for practice. Before sleep, you wash your face in warm water. You light a single candle. You whisper a name, just one, and let the silence follow. You lie in bed, the blanket heavy and familiar, the straw mattress creaking with every movement. The night is cool, but not bitter. The wind taps at the shutter like an old friend, and you realize you're no longer surviving the plague. You're simply living again. And now, here you are safe again, warm beneath your covers, the fire down to glowing embers. The air is still, the night quiet, and the worst has passed. You've made it through something impossible, not untouched, no, but alive, with memories like dried herbs folded into linen, and stories that no one else could tell. Quite the same way, let your breath slow, let your shoulders soften. The streets of that little town are far behind you now, and the ache of survival is giving way to something gentler. The plague is not a monster in the dark anymore. It's a shadow receding into history, awful, yes, but distant. A thing you've walked through, a thing you've endured. You can still smell the mint, still feel the scratch of straw beneath your fingers, still hear the soft giggle of a child who found sunlight in the middle of ashes. Let that sound carry you now. You don't need to do anything else tonight. There are no carts rumbling down cobbled streets. No cries in the alley. No hammers sealing doors, not only the hush of sleep settling around you like a woolen cloak. Warm and familiar dot, tomorrow the sun will rise again, just as it did back then. And with it a new day, quiet and whole dot, so let go now. Let the story fade. You're safe. You're here. And it's over. Sweet dreams.